Now back to our theme of gay Hispanic life in America. Brazilian-born Marta Donayre came to the U.S. via Ecuador in 1995 with her husband. Within 3 months she got divorced and began questioning her sexual orientation. Unfortunately, her timing was bad. As her lesbian life in Silicon Valley was expanding, the dot-com industry was shrinking, leaving her unemployed with only a work visa. Newly in love, Marta and her girlfriend got creative. Here's her story.
I was driving to work early on the morning of March 13, 2000, while listening to CNN radio. I was trying hard to keep abreast of the business news because I had an eagerness to move forward at work. Honestly, I was desperate to be liked enough so I could be sponsored for a green card by my employer. My work visa would expire in a few years, and I didn't know what I would do next if this happened. All I knew was that I would never have the courage to come out of the closet in my home country, Brazil. When the business news began, I heard something that I was not expecting. I still remember it clearly. The broadcaster began announcing that i2 Technologies of Texas had purchased Aspect. There were only 2 companies I knew of with that name, Aspect Telecommunications and Aspect Development, where I worked. My heart raced and my breath stopped. Inside my head, all I could hear was a fast-paced, telecommunications, please let it be telecommunications. Sadly, in that infinite lapse, the word Aspect was followed by development. Hell broke loose, and I immediately began crying as I reached for my cell phone and woke up my girlfriend Leslie. I had a tough commute, so I was working early to avoid some traffic. She was still deeply asleep when I called. "Hello," she said with a sleepy voice, and I began telling her what I had heard on the radio. I was agitated and panicked, and in tears told her to get herself an American girl that doesn't have these problems. These problems were being a recent college graduate working in marketing at a firm that had just been bought by another. Logically, the Texas company would want only one marketing team, and it would be the one already established in Dallas. Hearing Leslie say that's not going to happen was reassuring. It was unbelievable to hear her support and commitment to me when we had been together for only about a month. I ended up not getting laid off, but instead changed jobs to Ariba Incorporated, where a green card was offered as part of the deal. Sadly, the new job was not immune to the dot-com crash, and neither was I. In a massive layoff, I found myself amongst a third of the company that was let go on the same day, and with no green card in hand. Breaking its promise, the company never even filed for it. As all my recently laid-off colleagues gathered at the local brewery to have some beers, I ran to Leslie's office so I could apply to positions at her company. I had no time to waste. We had heard from different lawyers and HR professionals that I had anywhere from 10 to 90 days to find a new job or leave the country. If I couldn't find a new job quickly, I was entitled to a one-way ticket home. Fortunately, the job appeared, and I was able to stay. Yet the new company wasn't all that stable. It was a startup, and Silicon Valley was starting to crumble under everyone's feet, and I was afraid that I would be in for a bitter surprise if I sat around to wait. Leslie and I evaluated our options and decided that the best thing we should do was to move to Canada. Canada is always looking for talented individuals to immigrate there, and we both thought that we had a chance. In addition, Canada recognizes same-sex partners for immigration purposes, so as long as one of us qualified, the other one would be able to come along. The paperwork was tedious, lengthy, and it even required police records from every country we had lived in for the past 10 years. I had lived in Ecuador for a few years before moving to the U.S., so I also have to obtain a police background check from there. As promising as Canada seemed to us, we felt humiliated, hurt, and very angry we have to move there under those circumstances. Leslie has had a hard time saying the Pledge of Allegiance, not because of God, but because she's unable to say liberty and justice for all. She felt expelled from her own country for being a lesbian. Les and I met at a gay group for which both of us volunteered. We had always been fighters, and taking things sitting down was not our style. After we felt sad for ourselves, we became very angry at what was happening to us. Our advocacy soul kicked in, and we turned this anger into action. We started Love Sees No Borders, where we put to use our skills and shared our story. Our goal was to denounce the horrible injustice that we were enduring. Living in the Bay Area at the nadir of the dot-com crash, We were certain that we were not the only same-sex couple affected by immigration issues. But there was a deafening silence from both the gay and straight communities. This silence made a lot of sense to us. You see, immigration services know that by U.S. law, same-sex couples cannot marry, and therefore the American cannot sponsor a same-sex partner for immigration. At the same time, having a partner that is considered a spouse is a compelling reason for a foreigner to remain in the U.S. So instead of running the risk of having this person break immigration law, U.S. consulates abroad automatically deny visas when a same-sex relationship is revealed. Our decision to leave the U.S. for Canada protected us from the INS. We did and still do all of our Love Sees No Borders work for free, and in most cases pay for such expenses out of our pockets. We set out to be a public relations machine for the Permanent Partners Immigration Act, a bill currently in both houses of Congress. This bill would add the words "or permanent partner" every time the word spouse appears in immigration law, and defines who a permanent partner is. When the bill is finally enacted, Leslie and I, and many other couples, will no longer fear that the government will separate us. One of the unexpected benefits of starting Love Sees No Borders was the visibility Leslie and I gained. At a meeting of the San Francisco chapter of the Lesbian and Gay Immigration Rights Task Force, a lawyer suggested that I apply for asylum based on my sexual orientation. Leslie and I vaguely explored that option when I was first laid off, but since I came out only in the U.S., I had no story of past persecution in Brazil, so I had no case. But the lawyer said that things had changed since I was first laid off, and that now I had a public profile and visibility. We spoke to several lawyers about this, and they all agreed. So we filed for asylum, and fortunately the INS concurred, and now I'm here in the U.S. as an asylee. Solving our personal problem was not enough for us at two levels. The first was that neither of us could bear to see our friends in such a horrible predicament. While working so hard for this issue, we met a lot of couples that became very dear to us. The second reason was that we found out that asylum is not permanent. If conditions were to change in Brazil, the U.S. can come to me and tell me that I no longer need protection and that I should leave. As an asylee, I am entitled to apply for a green card, which I already did this year, but it's taking 11 to 12 years for asylees to obtain green cards. This is a very long time frame, and a lot of things can happen in the interim. Knowing that we're not completely safe, every now and then Leslie and I still find ourselves looking into our Canada file and thinking about heading north.